Welcome back. We begin with Moscow, where Libya's Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj met Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu ahead of peace talks with warlord Khalifa Haftar. Libya's UN-recognized government and the Haftar-led Eastern forces are expected to sign the truce today. Yesterday, the two sides agreed to a ceasefire brokered by Russia and Turkey. If signed, the pact would end 9 months of fighting in the North African country. Libya's head of High Council of State said the pact will revive the country's political process. Earlier, in a televised speech, Sarraj called on Libyans to forget the past, reject discord, and close ranks to move towards stability and peace. Moving on to the US, where President Donald Trump says he does not care if Iran agrees to negotiate with Washington. In a tweet, he said what is really important is that Tehran has no nuclear weapons and no protesters are harmed in the country. Earlier, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said Washington's maximum pressure campaign will force Iran to the negotiating table. Trump has repeatedly expressed support for the Iranian protesters and asked Tehran to allow human rights organizations to monitor protests. Mass protests in Iran are demanding authorities to resign over the Ukrainian airplane tragedy. Tensions in the Middle East escalated after U.S. airstrikes killed Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani on 3rd January in Baghdad. In a related development, Lebanon's Hezbollah says it is time for Iran's allies to avenge the killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah said the process will follow a long path with the goal of ejecting U.S. forces from the region. Nasrallah also denied the Iranian general had been planning to blow up U.S. embassies. He said U.S. President Donald Trump is lying about the motive behind Soleimani's killing.
In order to give an excuse, he said that he ordered the killing of Soleimani because he was planning to attack US embassies in the region. Liar. He is lying to his people. He is the biggest liar in American history.
In another development, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has warned that any military confrontation with Iran will impact global peace. Abe is on a 5-day visit to the Middle East, hoping to ease tensions spiked by Washington's killing of Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani. After meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Abe called on all parties to engage in diplomatic efforts to diffuse tensions. Japan's Foreign Ministry spokesman Masato Otako said both leaders also agreed to work closely on maritime security in the region, but he said Japan will not join a US-led coalition in the region. The Prime Minister's tour will also include visits to the United Arab Emirates and Oman. French President Emmanuel Macron says France and Russia want to safeguard Iran's nuclear deal. The statement comes after Macron spoke to Russia's President Vladimir Putin on phone. Macron said both states are ready to engage with Iran to preserve the region's stability. Earlier, Britain, France and Germany called on Iran to stick to the 2015 nuclear pact. In a joint statement, the EU leaders stressed on Iran to refrain from further violence. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang said U.S. sanctions on Iran can't solve the Middle East's problems. Speaking to reporters in Beijing, he stressed the need for dialogue to ensure stability and peace in the Middle East. Geng urged the U.S. to stop imposing sanctions against Chinese companies. President Donald Trump put further sanctions on Tehran after it attacked U.S. troops in Iraq. The new curbs also involve a Chinese trading firm and a shipping vessel. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has arrived in Saudi Arabia amid heightened tensions in the Middle East. Earlier, Qureshi was in Tehran, where he met Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif and President Hassan Rouhani. In a statement, the Foreign Office said Qureshi will hold meetings with Saudi officials during his visit. It said the Foreign Minister will discuss regional security with Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. Qureshi is on a diplomatic mission to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East and the Gulf region. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he will seek justice for the victims of the Ukrainian airplane disaster. Trudeau spoke in Edmonton, Alberta at a vigil for the 57 Canadians killed in the disaster. The mourners placed black-rimmed photos of the dead on the stage beside rose petals, candles and plates of dates. Trudeau consoled the grievers, saying he will not rest until there are answers.
We will continue to work with our partners to ensure that a full, transparent investigation is conducted. I want to assure all families and all Canadians, we will not rest until there are answers. We will not rest until there is justice and accountability.
In Tehran, authorities have ordered police to show restraint at demonstrations that broke out after the accidental shooting down of a Ukrainian jet. In a statement, the Capitol Police Chief said the demonstrators were treated with patience and tolerance. The Ukrainian International Airlines plane bound for Kiev was shot down shortly after taking off from Tehran on Wednesday. All 176 people on board were killed. Officials in Iran initially denied Western claims that the Boeing 737 was downed by a missile, but acknowledged it afterwards. Iran has invited experts from Canada, France, Ukraine, and the United States to take part in the investigation into the air disaster. Now from Kenya, Al-Qaeda-backed Al-Shabaab militants have killed 3 teachers in an attack on Kamuthe Primary School in eastern Kenya. Police said the militants from neighboring Somalia targeted the settlement in Garissa County and torched a security post. Officials said a child was also wounded by a stray bullet. Al-Shabaab has targeted Kenya frequently after it sent troops into Somalia in 2011 to fight the militant group. Last week, 4 school children were killed in a gunfight between Al-Shabaab and local police in Garissa. Moving on, the U.S. has reached out to North Korea to resume diplomatic negotiations in Stockholm after the 2 countries broke off talks in October. White House National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said the U.S. has used multiple channels to communicate with North Korea. He said Washington wants to implement Chairman Kim's commitment to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. O'Brien said it was a positive sign that the North Korean leader did not deliver on his warning of a Christmas gift. Last week, Pyongyang said it will not discuss proposals like those made by Trump at the Hanoi summit in February 20. Human Rights Watch Chief Kenneth Roth says he has been denied entry into Hong Kong. He was scheduled to launch a report by the watchdog there on the unrest in the territory. Roth said officials told him he was barred from immigration reasons, even though he had visited the city before. In a statement, HRW said Roth will now launch the report on 14th January at the United Nations in New York. However, China has said the denial of entry for Human Rights Watch director is in accordance with the law. During months of violent anti-government protests, Hong Kong has barred several activists, foreign journalists, and an academic. The longest mass transport strike in modern French history has entered its 40th day. This comes despite the French government's offer of major concessions to unions. The hardline CGT union, which wants the reforms dropped altogether, rejected the offer and called on workers to continue protesting. Demonstrators in Paris, masked and hooded, broke shop windows, set fire, and threw projectiles at police in riot gear. Last week, Prime Minister Edouard Philippe offered to withdraw the most contentious measure of the pension reform plans. Philippe aims to present the reform bill on January 24th so that it can be discussed in Parliament starting in mid-February. 14 people have been killed as heavy rain and snow wreaked havoc in Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province. The meteorological department said heavy snowfall in the province's capital, Quetta, has broken a 20-year record. Officials said 6 people, including 3 women and 3 children, died in Zob district after their roof collapsed. They said heavy snowfall has also claimed lives in the border town of Chaman, Barshore, and the Pishin district's Bostan area. Authorities said hundreds of passengers are stranded on different highways linking Balochistan. More from Pakistan. The Lahore High Court declared the special court formed for former President Pervez Musharraf's trial unconstitutional. In December, the court handed General Musharraf a death sentence for violating the country's constitution in 2007. The High Court said the case against the former president was not prepared in accordance with the law. In his petition, General Musharraf had called for setting aside the special court's verdict for being illegal and without jurisdiction. Pakistan's Foreign Ministry summoned Indian envoy Gaurav Ahluwalia to protest the ceasefire violation along the line of control on the 11th of January. A 24-year-old man was killed in unprovoked Indian firing in Quetta sector of the line of control. The Director General South Asia and SAARC desk at the Foreign Ministry, Zahid Hafiz Chowdhury, said ceasefire violations by India is a threat to peace in the region. He said India can't divert world's attention from human rights violation in occupied Kashmir. He called on India to respect the ceasefire. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. In New Delhi, 7 Afghan nationals have been arrested in connection with smuggling narcotics. Authorities say they busted an international drug syndicate which was being operated from Afghanistan. They say over 1 kilogram of high-quality heroin was also seized during the operation. The arrested Afghan nationals were trying to enter India with the heroin hidden on their persons. Officials say a detailed probe has been launched to identify other people linked to the network. In India, the all-women sit-in against the controversial citizenship law in the capital, New Delhi, has completed 1 month. Demonstrators have refused to leave Shaheen Bagh until government withdraws the new act. Indian Congress leader Shashi Tharoor addressed the sit-in, saying the women's resistance is legendary. Meanwhile, BJP leader Dilip Ghosh said protesters should be shot directly for damaging public property. In another incident, Indian police arrested 80 protesters for waving black flags at Home Minister Amit Shah in Madhya Pradesh. 27 people have been killed in countrywide protests against the Citizenship Act, considered discriminatory to Muslim minorities. The Philippines is on a high alert after Luzon Island's Taal volcano started spewing ash and lava. Officials at the region forced a series of earthquakes, and streets surrounding the volcano were coated in fine grit. They said at least 10,000 people sought refuge in evacuation centers. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology raised the alert level from 3 to 4 out of a maximum of 5. Situated in the middle of a lake, Taal is one of the world's smallest volcanoes, but Philippines' second most active. Authorities warned that there was a risk an eruption could cause a tsunami in the lake. In Australia, rescue services say firefighters have finally brought the country's largest mega blaze under control. Rain in the last couple of days delivered much-needed respite for the countryside ravaged by bushfires. New South Wales Rural Fire Service Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons said dozens of other fires are yet to be brought under control. Authorities have asked citizens to remain vigilant as work to clear roadblocks and fallen trees is underway in Victoria State. The Australian government has also committed $50 million to an emergency wildlife recovery program. The raging bushfires have killed 28 people and over 800 million animals, destroying 2,000 homes. In the UK, Queen Elizabeth has summoned senior royals in Sandringham today to discuss the future roles of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Prince Harry, the Duke of Cambridge, and the Prince of Wales are set to attend, while Meghan Markle is expected to join the discussions over the phone from Canada. The meeting will be the first time the monarch will speak face-to-face with Prince Harry since the couple's announcement. The Sussexes said they plan to step back as senior members of the royal family. The royal couple said they made the decision after months of reflection and internal discussions. In Germany, the historic island of Helgoland that was once used as a practice bombing site for British airmen after World War II has now turned into a nursery for North Sea seals, attracting a number of tourists and photographers. The report will tell you how.
Around 1,000 of the animals flock to this archipelago in the North Sea for the birthing season between November and January. But it's the newborn seal pups who are the true stars of the show.
They are so close, so alive. I often see them on television, but it's even more exciting here.
For safety, tourists and photographers are asked to stay 30 metres away from the animals, who can weigh up to 300 kilos when they reach adulthood and have been known to bite if they feel threatened. Keeping an eye on both the seals and their observers are volunteers from the Jordsand Association and 2 rangers employed by Heligoland's town hall.
Sometimes tourists forget their limits and get too close. This has negative consequences in the summer because the seals get used to people. They'll want to play in the water and they can injure swimmers.
To keep excited tourists from getting too close, especially during birthing season, wooden boardwalks have been created. For now, the populations are manageable, even if sometimes a cheeky youngster makes its way beyond the barriers. But some fear a rise in water temperatures and levels could lead to greater seal numbers, leaving less space for both seals and enthusiastic tourists.
There are more and more of them, and I think it's because there's lots of food here. But we're at sea level here, and if the water levels increase, we'll probably have new challenges to face.
The Jordsand Association says there have been more than 520 births since November. Once weaned, the baby seals will head to the water of the North Sea, but they'll return in spring to change their fur, much to the delight of photographers and wildlife observers.
In South Korea, firms are experimenting with advanced artificial intelligence techniques in the hiring process for whittling down the applicant lists. According to the Korea Economic Research Institute, a quarter of 131 top corporations are using AI in hiring. Watch this report about how job seekers are trying to beat the robots in interviews.
만나서 반갑습니다.
Sitting in front of a computer and speaking into a microphone, 22-year-old student Kim Seok-woo is practicing for a job interview. It's not a person he's speaking to, but an artificial intelligence computer. With less than 2 minutes to answer before his verbal and facial expressions get analyzed, Kim is visibly nervous and fidgeting.
When you prepare for a job interview, people know how to get a high score or make themselves seem positive. You can't really do that for AI interviews. As a job seeker, I think I'll feel hopeless if AI interview is made popular and the majorities of the company use them.
After the introduction, AI hiring also uses gamification to gauge a candidate's adaptability by putting them through a sequence of tests.
We check their subconscious behavior. We believe actual performance or competency of the applicants cannot be properly assessed when they are deliberately thinking, responding, and acting during interviews. We want to see how the applicants subconsciously react and deal with situations.
Job seekers are displeased with the step, calling it an additional hurdle in their career path.
In Mexico, red tide algae bloom on the southern Pacific coast has killed hundreds of green sea turtles. According to the officials, 292 turtles have been killed, while a few have been rescued. Watch this report on how conservationists are trying to save the rare turtles.
Sick turtles are temporarily placed on floaties in shallow pools as they recover at the Mexican Turtle Center in Oaxaca. They are removed from the ocean to be nursed back to health before being released into the wild again.
We are treating 11 turtles who are in recovery. One has a life vest as it can't breathe very well, and it needs support so it doesn't drown. The treatment they're undergoing involves bicarbonates, active carbonates, and histamines.
Autopsies showed that the sick turtles consumed sea salps with high levels of algae toxins brought on from the red tide. The phenomenon is caused by algal blooms that can be so strong to turn the coastal waters red. As a result, oxygen in the water is depleted and the algae releases toxins that can harm wildlife.
Across the Oaxaca coast, there have been reports of 292 dead turtles. Now the toxins from the red tide are coming down. It's estimated that in the coming week, the phenomena will go down, and also the number of turtles that died.
Experts say vast expanses of red algae are caused by several factors, including climate change.
Stock markets across Europe are trading higher as investors await the signing of a Phase 1 trade deal between the US and China. Investors are pushing fresh rally as technology stocks rose on a clutch of price target bumps.
London's FTSE 100 is trading 0.5% higher ahead of November's economic data due to be released later in the day. Frankfurt's DAX has gained a fraction as index heavyweight Siemens AG stocks surged fractionally. CAC 40 in Paris is also trading fractionally higher. In Asia, Hang Seng led the gains, closing over 1% higher. Tech stocks led the gains as Lenovo stocks surged nearly 3%, while gaming company Razer shares shot up almost 10%. The Shanghai Composite gained 0.75%, closing at a near 2-year high as investors are looking forward to economic data due this week.
Saudi Arabia's energy minister said the kingdom's oil production is at over 9 million barrels per day in January and February. Speaking in Tehran, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman Al Saud said Iraq's compliance with OPEC cuts improved in December and it is looking for full compliance in January. He said kingdom has taken all precautions to ensure the safety of oil facilities after the recent strikes in Iraq. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.